Good day to you this day of your time. How are you all?
Good.
How are all of you?
Great.
Thank you. Once again, we thank each and every one of you for allowing this co-created interaction to take place through this window at this time. We would like to begin this transmission with a few ideas. First, we would like to make what you term in your language an announcement. In recognizing that there are timings and shiftings and thresholds and cycles within your civilization as there is within any civilization, we would like to allow you to know that what you call our next transmission, in your terms, tomorrow of your time, being your recognized transition date of Friday the 13th, we will discuss the idea and share with you some of the concepts of the notion of 13, the unlocking key of 13, the concepts of what you may in the past have called the mystical ideas of 13, the energy behind it, and how you can see a new aspect, a new understanding of this idea, as was understood in some of what you may have termed the ancient mystery school. So we will discuss tomorrow of your time, in the tomorrow transmission, the concepts of the unlocking of the vibration of the number 13, and how it can be utilized in a variety of ways as transition to aid and assist in the acceleration and growth of your exploration of consciousness and your application of your growth spiritually into your physical day-to-day reality, by teaching how to utilize this vibration in a very concrete and applicable way, in a variety of ways on your planet. We will also, we are told, have what you may term a visitor tomorrow of your time in that transmission, someone who has not communicated with you before. These things, then, we are allowed to announce to begin to allow your minds to prepare to receive something a little bit different than we have delivered before, so that in your preparation, even though we have given you no absolute specifics, your mind, your consciousness will be working toward the opening of new doorways with your curiosity in wondering what these things may be. And by the time it comes time for the transmission tomorrow of your time, you will have done the appropriate inner work so that the doors will open easily and smoothly, so that your hinges will not squeak, so that the information can more readily be applied and integrated within the expansion of your consciousness. But today of your time, as you say, in this transmission, we would now like to underscore an idea that we would call the connection between your chakra system and cycles of growth and maturation. Many of you are familiar with the concept of your body's chakra system, that is the energy centers, all 7 of them, that, shall we say, reside within the physical embodiment of your beingness, your physical body. That which you call the root chakra, number 1. The emotion center chakra number 2, going up from the root as it climbs in your body, going through what you call the solar plexus chakra, the chakra of intentional energy, to the heart chakra, chakra of, in that sense, love, and the idea up to the 5th in the throat, the idea of expression in that sense, and then the 6th in what you call your third eye psychic center, and then the 7th what you call your crown chakra on top of your head, your spiritual divination center chakra. These 7 systems have been known on your planet for thousands of your years. Not only, in some sense, represent the idea of your growth in energy, your acceleration in stepping up your vibration spiritually as you yourself mature on your path, but also are directly connected in direct analogy to the growth cycles of your physical human maturation. For example, each and every year of your physical existence on the earth represents the idea of connection to the energy of the chakra represented by that year. The idea, therefore, is to understand that in your first year of physical life, you are dealing specifically with the idea of connecting through the energies of the first chakra, 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, and so forth. But also then you have cycles beyond that, 7 cycles of 7. The idea thus being that as you mature, you are going through each of the 7 steps over again, but each time you do, you are going through them on a different level representative, yet again, of one of the chakra systems. For example, in your first 7 years, you are exemplifying certain traits of all 7 chakras in each of the 7 years. But you are doing it all within the context of the first chakra for the first 7 years. Then in the 7 years following, what you call the second 7 years, from your age 8 to approximately 14, you are exemplifying again the 7 chakras from 1 to 7, but in the level of chakra number 2. So you're exploring the idea of all 7 chakras again, but expressing them through the second level of emotional connection, connecting to your emotional self, your emotional center. Then in the 3rd cycle of maturation, you are again going through the 7 cycles, but you are expressing them through the connection of intention, which is the energy of the 3rd chakra, and so on. So 7 times 7, your 49 first years of physical life are the exemplification of going through the chakra system 7 times 7, and thus bringing yourself to what you would consider to be full maturation, and thus then capable of going into a completely different cycle thereafter of expression. New level altogether of integration and expression in your creativity and your connection to the idea of your empowerment in the world and your ability to express yourself creatively in the world, and is a very important threshold and a crossing in your time of life. Your first century is broken into the idea of a 50-year cycle, or more precisely 49, and thus beginning in your 50th year, a new reality, a new you altogether begins to emerge as the product of the integration of the 7 times 7 cycles of expression and incorporation into your beingness, into your consciousness, of your ability to understand that you have thus then graduated through all the different levels 7 times, and are free in many different ways to re-identify and redefine yourself as a new being, beginning a new cycle on a very different level. We will discuss this in more detail at another time, but just to lay down the foundation now of understanding the correlation between the chakra system and your actual cycles, your yearly cycles of growth, can be seen very readily and are expressed in many of your ancient texts, but perhaps in this day and age now require some translation to remember that these things correlate. For example, it is in many societies recognized that your 7th year is what has been euphemistically called your age of reason. This in general means you're at an age where you have the ability to comprehend the difference between positive and negative, and in a sense are held responsible to some degree for your actions and no longer are considered an infant. The idea, therefore, is the recognition that upon the 7th year you have completed the cycle of the first 7 chakras and are now completely locked into the physical reality. The first 3 years, the first 3 chakras deal with the physiological connections, and the last 4, 5, 6, 7 deal with the idea of spiritual, emotional, and mental connections, so to speak. But the idea is that by your age of 7, you have combined all of these into a recognition of a certain level of autonomy. By, again, the next 7, you are going into the idea you call puberty, and recognizing that you are connecting to the deep emotional centers, and allowing yourself to come to terms with your feeling connections to your society, to your planet. Thus, then in the 3rd cycle, the completion cycle of the connecting to the physical world, what you recognize as your age of 21, you have intuitively recognized that this, in a sense, makes you to some degree an adult in physical terms. That you are now connected completely on all 3 levels, the first 3 chakras, to the physical reality, and are usually allowed now to go about your business, considered, in a sense, an adult. Thus then you spend the next step, 4 cycles of 7, going about the idea of maturing into your spiritual context, your psychic context in that sense, your ability to express yourself in your society, and your ability to come to terms with your spiritual place in the world, and all the reasons for why you chose to be physiological on your planet to begin with. So look upon these ideas of correlation. In general, allow your mind and your feelings and your heart and your spirituality to ponder this connection and understand that it is also capable of representing a system similar to what you would call an astrological system in your planet, in that if you understand how to lay this grid out of correlating years to the first 7 levels of the chakras, 7 times 7, you'll be able to understand when it comes to the idea of relating to children or relating to anyone growing up, especially in the first 49 years, by understanding exactly at what point they are in the cycle. You'll be able to understand, in general at least, and sometimes very specifically, what it is they're exactly going through, what issues they are examining in their life at that point, and by understanding it energetically as it correlates to the chakra system, you'll be able to understand how to communicate with those beings and understand what they are going through much more clearly by overlaying this particular grid system upon their life, at least again in general. We thank you for allowing us to share this idea with you at this time, and once again, in return for the gift that you are giving our civilization in allowing us to communicate with you at this time, and through you see, in each of your unique expressions, that many more ways that the infinite has of expressing itself, we ask in return, in what way at this time may we, and I, be of service to you.
Sure.
Yes, good day.
Good day. Okay. The idea of unplugging from a belief or a situation or like an attachment, an emotional attachment that you don't prefer.
Yes.
You know, I know that you've always talked to us about, you say, what are you getting out of it? What motivates you? What are the pros and the cons of it? And a lot of times when you talk to me about this and I think about it, I feel confused. And
about what?
Well, about what really, because I think, well, I don't prefer it,
Yes.
but I continue to just go, constantly be plugged into this.
All right, but again, remember, if we may interrupt you for a moment.
Please.
The idea really is that when we use the word preference, we are using it on what might be considered to be a higher level, an overview level. But there is also another way to understand on a more pragmatic level the concept of preference. Let us see if this is what is confusing you, for it only may be a semantic confusion.
Okay.
When you do continue to choose to buy into certain beliefs based on the idea that your definition says you are getting something out of it, and that is why you keep choosing it, that is, obviously, your preference, even though it may not be your preference. Mm-hmm. Do you understand the difference? Mm-hmm. You have the ability to have an overview of all the things you could prefer. But when it comes right down to your physiological consciousness, whatever it is you are motivated to behave in the direction of, whatever it is you are motivated to act upon, obviously must for some reason be being defined within you as your preference, or you wouldn't be choosing it.
Okay. So
does that make sense to you?
Yes. And that's
so there are 2 levels of the concept.
Yeah, sort of your higher self and your self-self.
Yes.
Okay. Because I'd like to just be very specific now.
Oh, by all means, please do.
Yeah. Okay, the relationship that I was in this summer.
Yes.
You know a lot about that.
Yes.
I talked to you a lot about it.
Yes.
I still, I haven't seen him in 4 months. I still think about him all the time.
So?
Well, I don't prefer it.
You don't prefer to think about it?
I mean, plug into being like, oh, him, sad, oh, I miss him.
All right. What you're saying is that you do not prefer to be sad when you think about that entity.
Right. I want to see this, because I may see this entity soon, and I want to see him and be totally unplugged from woundology.
Woundology.
You know what I mean?
Yes. It took a moment for a translation, but yes. The idea, again, if you wish, is to proceed with the question, do you know why you are choosing to react with sadness?
I come up with reasons, but I don't know if that's it, because I continue to do it.
All right.
I mean,
what are the reasons you have come up with so far? Let's examine them together. What reasons do you come up with?
I thought it was like a habit, because
No.
that was my... Okay, that's not it. Okay. Tell me when I'm getting hot. You know why I do it? Like, being like the knowing being that you are?
I will know when I need to know. But I will recognize it, perhaps more precisely, when you hit it.
Okay. Well, I figure... Okay, I come from one perspective at times thinking, it must be serving me, or I wouldn't continue.
Anything can be used to serve you. You may not be using this to serve you. Anything can be used to serve you. There's a difference.
Right, I understand that.
All right.
Okay, so what about, I'm just used to being a victim? Is being a victim getting hot, close?
A little bit. It is a comfortable space for you. And in that sense, if you mean it's a habit, so to speak,
not a habit.
you might have hit on something, but a portion of it only.
Okay.
Perhaps it is an issue of disbelief, unwillingness to expand your ability to believe that something else can happen. What about that idea? How does that strike you?
Something else can happen, like, you mean than like this normal, pattern of...
In other words, many individuals on your planet, when they feel or seem to feel they cannot, as you say, let go of the feeling of loss when a change occurs, when they choose to continue to connect themselves to it in that sense, in that way. The idea goes hand in hand with not allowing the self to have the ability to project ahead toward another thing that could happen, that could replace it, and actually be more of what you prefer.
I understand that concept, because you've said before, when you let go, your arms are open, and then you're open to receive. And I realize that, and I say, and some days I feel that way, and then I'll be driving down the street and I'll see a car like his, and I'll just, it just hits me.
All right, and in that moment, that's your opportunity to look at what issue, what definition, what belief within you is allowing you to choose to react that way.
Yeah.
Remember, you are all still fragmented consciousnesses. And in some senses, many portions, many fragments may still be unconscious.
Right.
But as you give yourself an opportunity to come face to face with that moment and feel that way, to see that you still feel that way, it's not that you still feel that way, it's that you now can realize that that fragment hasn't been dealt with, hasn't been integrated. It's an opportunity to recognize you still may have a fragment that has been given the autonomous ability to deal with this relationship separately, hasn't been integrated, is being allowed to function autonomously, but now is your opportunity to grant it its due, to recognize that you now wish this fragment to be incorporated into you holistically, and to find out what the fragment represents. You can look at yourself as an overall being, and understand that you as an overall being don't have to feel that you are losing ground or still reacting this way, to realize that as an overall being you may still have fragments that are reacting that way and can incorporate them as you experience them into the wholeness of yourself.
And the way to incorporate these fragments is to basically just look at it.
Well, still the ways that we have discussed, yes. Understand what definition you may have to allow that fragment to still relate to the situation that way, or what definition does that fragment that is relating to the situation that way represent. But at the same time, you can come from a wholeness, so that the fragment, the feeling of having the fragment, doesn't have to color the whole being that you are, as if then you can assume that the whole of you is still reacting that way. the reason you feel the way you do is because you still assume that the whole you is reacting that way.
But you know, when we talk to you and you say,
Yes.
you say, a part of me feels this way.
I know, you're not a collection of parts. Yes, but that is telling you that that's really what you are. You really are not a collection of parts, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you experience yourself that way because you choose to, because of your belief system. So we are now talking the difference between the ideal way to understand yourself and the way that you are still choosing to experience yourself. To say that you are not a collection of parts doesn't take away from the fact that many of you still design yourself to experience yourself as if you were. You understand? So you are still designing yourself to experience yourself as if you were a collection of parts, so I'm addressing it that way.
I understand.
Even though ideally, as the whole being, you know you are not really. You don't really have to look at yourself that way. But if you still are, that's what we are addressing. So, we are now giving you an opportunity to stand in between, to look at the center spot between these two ideas of a whole being that you are, that is not a collection of parts, that doesn't function as a collection of parts, and the being that still does choose to function as a collection of parts. This is your opportunity, in a sense, to, shall we say, for a moment, paradoxically split yourself in order to integrate yourself.
Okay.
By being able to come from an overview that knows it's not a collection of parts, at the same time, thus coming from a being that does function as a collection of parts. Does this make any sense to you?
Yeah, because I experience it. I mean, there's times when I feel so powerful and strong and whole.
That's when you are coming from the holism, and that's when you are using the perspective that any parts you may create can easily and smoothly and effortlessly be integrated within you. The idea, however, is that you still have within some of the parts you have created within yourself notions that they cannot be smoothly integrated. In other words, part of the definition that creates the part also is a definition that makes it difficult to integrate that part. Do you understand?
Yes.
Whereas, other times when you be whole, you are dealing with portions, parts you have created yourself to be, that do not, by definition, carry within the definition a difficulty of integration. Whereas some of the parts you have created within yourself carry within their makeup, within their definition, a difficulty of integration. And that's what you're having trouble with.
Right.
Yes.
This issue.
Does that make sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense now. Okay,
Yes.
so can we just do like hands-on, like right now, like as
Yes.
far as my integrating
Yes.
this aspect of myself?
Yes. What would you, if you had to give it a name, what would you call this fragment? Would you call it a fragment of loneliness? What would you call it?
Yeah, a fragment of rejection.
A fragment of rejection.
Yeah.
All right. That's what this is then, a fragment of rejection. In that it is a fragment of rejection, does that not, step one, automatically tell you that by its very essence it will reject integration? Are you beginning to get the point? So by its very structure, it has no choice but to reject being integrated because it is a fragment of rejection. Therefore, its essence is to reject any attempt to integrate.
So, how do we transform rejection?
By knowing that, first of all.
That we're going to transform it.
By knowing what it is.
By
naming it,
by
seeing what it is mechanically, you have automatically, in a sense, begun to transform it because you are calling it what it is. You are defining it clearly and understanding it in its own right, for its own sake, on its own territory.
Okay.
When you know the name of a thing, you have power in that thing. That is the old understanding of many indigenous cultures. That's the concept behind naming things. Knowing the vibrational name of a thing gives you power within that thing. You understand?
So by naming our fragmented parts,
you know what it is and understand it mechanically, and by knowing it, you can see why it is functioning and behaving the way that it is. And just knowing that will, many times in and of itself, erase the effect, because it's no longer a mystery. You know what it is. You go, oh, well, no wonder I can't integrate it easily. By its very essence, it is the energy of rejection. So it is rejecting integration. Ah, I get it, I understand it, and by the understanding, it is integrated. Do you understand?
For sure. No.
Clear.
I do understand.
Why?
I do
this
understand.
is why we so often, shall we say, stress the idea that it is essential that you clearly define what's going on within you.
Right.
That is the essence of transformation, is to clearly understand what it is that's happening mechanically within your energy vibration. So when you give it a name, when you recognize it for what it is, then you are using the principle that knowing it transforms it instantly.
Wow.
It is the same idea of what we have labeled as the idea of the habit. When you know you have a habit, you don't have it anymore because you have to be beyond it to know you had it.
Right.
So, when you know what the fragment really is, you have to be beyond it to see it for what it is. You have to be outside the forest to see it as a forest. You have to be beyond the fragment in order to know what the fragment was. You have to step outside of it instead of being caught up in it.
Uh-huh.
And that's what's made it difficult, is you have become caught up in it because you didn't know what it was. When you know what it is, when you step out and label it and know what it is, you understand that by having the ability to know what it is, you have to be outside of it to have given it a name. And therefore, it is done.
Forever?
Yes. Unless you choose another fragment that says you need to experience that idea in another way from another point of view. And if so, then just find out what that name is, what that fragment is. Find out what it is. And that will also help you integrate that portion of it and why you may choose to experience it again.
Right. So in a nutshell, a lot of what humans sort of pain comes from is just being fragmented and having not a clue as to what all these different aspects were.
Pain is the result of resistance to the natural self. And resistance comes from not understanding who and what you are. So when you define more clearly who and what you are, it gives you the ability to integrate and align with yourself more easily, more effortlessly, and thus transform the energy you experience as pain into effortless joy.
Wow. Would you say that a lot of humans have these types of fragments just from like years of patterning?
Yes. It can come from patterning. This is again why it is important to understand that once you can recognize the pattern is there, in many ways you are already beyond the pattern.
Right.
Because again, it does in many ways come from patterning. And again, the patterning is relatively unconscious. But once you bring it into consciousness, you can deal with it. You can integrate it. Just by bringing it into consciousness many times, you have dealt with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I really thank you for this great help. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Bashar.
You, and then you. Number 2, do you know who you are?
Yes.
All right. Number 1, good day.
Hi, Bashar. Last Saturday, I went up to Santa Barbara to have a diffusion.
Yes.
Wonderful woman. And in the middle of the diffusion, she said that they were having a meeting, and she wasn't really involved in ET stuff or anything like that, but that she was told that they were going to be given this rock from Syria.
They whom?
A group of people, like this individual named David was going over this person's house, and she was invited to be one of the people to go and hold this rock.
Yes, and so?
And so she invited me to go.
Yes, and
So
so?
I thought, well, gee, okay.
All right.
So I went,
Yes.
and he came and he had this rock, and he did a healing meditation for the planet,
Yes.
and then he passed it around and we held it.
Yes.
And he said that it was made on Sirius, that 25 years ago he was sent by a woman, he was sent by a guide to a woman's house in Las Vegas where he got the stone, and he was told that he was to keep it. And he said it was just recently activated. It was made on Sirius by a Sirius being, layered with imbued consciousness. And it was truly an unusual experience to hold this.
Yes, and so?
Well, what do you know about this?
Certain things.
What would you like to tell?
Nothing in particular. What do you feel you need to know?
Oh, well, I mean...
What is your, quote-unquote, $64,000 question?
Is it real?
Are you saying, is it really from the Sirius
He
system?
called it a cosmic egg. Is this what the story he's telling, the thing that I held? Is this
In some senses, yes. The idea, more precisely, is this. It is imbued and infused with Sirius energy, and as such, the material that has been native to your planet has been transformed into material that is native to the Sirius system. In that sense, it is a stone from Sirius, even though the original material did issue from your world. Do you understand this?
Yes.
It has been transformed, or perhaps more precisely, transmuted.
And what is its purpose?
You already understand that. You are going into what we have euphemistically called the Sirius cycle now on your planet, which is a higher vibration that you all need to get used to, that is representative of your cohesive higher self. So the Sirius energy is here to help train you toward the vibration of becoming your higher self. That's, in a sense, its function is to reflect that energy as you contain it, so that you can get used to operating on the higher self naturally. Thus, as you increase your vibration, it will become more natural to be telepathic with not only the dolphin consciousnesses, which of course are connected very strongly to Sirius beings telepathically, but with any other form of consciousness you desire.
So maybe one of my questions is,
Yes.
why was I there?
I can't answer that for you. And you already know I can't answer that for you. You tell me, why were you there? Do you not recognize it simply as timing with regard to the things that are revealing themselves to you from yourself as a reflection of directions that would serve you in terms of energy?
Yeah.
Well, does it have to be more mysterious than that?
It seems kind of mysterious.
It seemed kind of mysterious. The only mystery there is the mystery of yourself. And that is what you are being invited to explore. With that energy, it will light your way into the mystery of yourself. Because remember, what have we said about the unknown?
Make it your friend.
And, in this case, more appropriately,
No expectation.
no. The unknown is the only place you will actually ever find your true self. Therefore, the light of Sirius is a very strong tool to help each and every one of you who wishes to use it illuminate the unknown self that you are discovering. You understand?
Yeah.
So, that is the mystery that you sense. It is the more of yourself that is waiting in the unknown to be discovered and illuminated by that portion of yourself willing to utilize the vibration of your higher self that you call in your planetary day and age the light of Sirius energy.
Is it like one of those time release mechanisms where just by holding it, it activates aspects of itself?
In a sense, but take a step backward. By allowing certain time release recognitions to occur within yourself, it brings about the reflection of drawing yourself or attracting yourself to a situation where you would thus be then holding a reflection of a change that has already happened within you.
Oh, so it's almost symbolic.
Not that it is causing the change, but that it is a reflection of a change you are already willing to create within yourself. And thus you get the exterior experience that reflects that this has already happened within you, or is happening within you at that moment.
Yeah.
You understand the difference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that help you?
Yeah, and the other thing was that there were 6 of us there.
Yes.
And he said
Sixth density, the number of Sirius.
and he said that one of us, well, there were 7 of us.
Yes.
6 of us. And
But it is still a sixth density energy.
yes. And he said that one of the people in the room knew the person who the stone was going to be transferred to, that was, like, supposed to carry it on from there.
Yes, and
I
so?
don't know.
No. You cannot know this from me.
Yeah, okay.
Plainly.
Oh, I have another question.
Yes?
About the mantis.
What about the mantis?
Well, you said that the mantis represented many things,
Yes.
and I wanted to know some of the things that it represented.
Well, go right ahead. Allow yourself to know some of the things it represents.
It feels like a very high intelligence.
Yes.
It also, the literature seems to say that it's the one that says things that are so painful and terrifying. But I don't know.
Sometimes the things that it does are perceived as exceedingly terrifying and painful because it has the capacity to bring consciousness right to the very edge.
So it's not necessarily the one that does medical things to people, or
Not in that sense, no.
because I wasn't really relating to it that way. And in fact, I actually embraced it after that experience and after interacting with you about it. I embraced it, I believe, fully.
It is, in and of itself, one of its expressions, the energy of embrace. The energy of total acceptance. Anything else?
No, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2. Good day.
Good day, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect, and you? You are All right.
At the moment.
At the moment. All right.
Okay.
I guess that means you have momentum. All right.
What I thought was interesting was last week when I talked to you about going to the desert, about the Mormon stone, there was a portion of information I had received the week before that I had written, that I had not turned the page
Yes.
until this week.
And so, what was revealed?
What I got as far as the blockage and the wizard, transforming that feeling of blockage into the process of rebirthing,
Yes.
letting go of the old self,
Yes.
no loss,
All right.
moving to become.
Because remember, there is no loss. Because the paradox, the power of the paradox is letting go of the old self is actually the function of the total acceptance of the old self. Understand the paradox? The way to expand is to incorporate and accept what was before. That is the process of letting go, is to allow it to be equal to anything else that you are going to. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does make sense.
That's why there really isn't a loss.
I think. Okay. And moving to becoming an energetic being, there's much to do, much to learn as soon as I can. There's much excitement and great transformation.
Yes.
And that was what I hadn't read
Yes.
after I'd written
Yes.
until this week.
Yes.
And then I went into Joshua Tree, and of course we talked about the Merlin and Princess energy. During the week, this is pulling me out of myself a lot. It hasn't been particularly easy. But what came was the transformation.
How do you know it's not pulling you into more of yourself?
It is.
All right.
It is.
All right.
The transformation of energy.
One moment to further the analogy for all of you. You can perceive a single drop of water. It has unto itself, thus, as you perceive it thus, to be a single drop of water, its own singular identity, does it not? If then that drop of water is absorbed into a glass of water, is that a loss? It is perhaps a softening of its identity or a shift in its identity, but you can still know that the single drop is within the glass. At the same time, in being absorbed, it is in a sense bigger and more than it was before. That is the nature of the idea of expansion. You only feel it as a loss when you define somehow that the single drop is no longer in the glass of water. That in order to get the glass of water, somehow the single drop is not included. That's when you experience the concept of loss, when you let go of the past. Is that when you assume that it's no longer there, instead of understanding that it has simply become less defined, less focused upon, but that it is eminently there in the new thing you have included it in. Absorption is not loss, but inclusion, even though it has been redefined from the way it was being defined before. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And does that help alleviate the concept of loss to some degree?
Yeah, there is no elimination.
No, there can be no elimination. Only change. Only transformation. That which is, and cannot become that which is not. There is no such thing as true elimination. Only transformation. So then,
the transformation of energy into the princess T'Challa energy.
Yes.
The transformation of energy into benevolence, kindness, the ability to help people, to transfer. This I guess I did not finish this thought. The ability to transfer whatever, to transfer energy anymore. Can I want to go on to something else because
Go right ahead.
Finish this thought.
Go right ahead.
Later on, I'll
Go right ahead.
Okay. Then when I was in Bashar 2, the thing was each place is a different aspect of myself in that area. As I looked in that area that I go to,
Yes.
I was reminded of the feeling of the last time I was there. That for me, that is where all the knowledge exists.
Yes.
Like the Akashic city that
Akashic.
city that we visited during the class.
Yes, as a symbol, yes. However you wish to define it, the point of information doesn't care. It's all the same idea. Whatever idea you give it, even the Akashic city, is only a representation of that point of information that is you.
Okay, and that's the feeling I had of that particular location.
Yes.
And as the Princess Shatala sees all aspects with benevolence in a place of non-judgment, she has the ability to transform energy to the environment around her
Yes.
and others.
Is this a question or a statement?
This is how I felt the energy transfer.
All right. But your energy, or what you call your inflection, rose at the end, which translates as a question, meaning you are uncertain of what you're saying, or you are certain.
I'm certain.
Thank you.
And that was an extremely humbling realization.
All right, thank you.
Now, what I don't know exactly what all that means other than to take it for what it is.
Yes.
And
Of course, remembering that you supply the meaning at any given moment to anything that you're experiencing. And so?
Well, I realized that I have, and anyone else has, the ability to affect every single thing around me.
And why should that be so?
Because we're energetic. And whatever, as
More immediate. Why should that be so? Why do you have the ability to affect everything around you? Keep it simple. This isn't complicated.
that's complicated.
Yes. Why would you be capable of affecting everything around you? How would it be possible for such a thing to be?
Because I'm a part of it.
Because everything is a part of you. You understand? Because everything is an expression and reflection of a version of you. And you are, yes, an expression and a reflection of all that is. That's why. Because there is only one thing. Even though there are differentiations within it that are made, when you recognize that you do affect everything around you, that recognition is the recognition that everything is one, and that you can utilize or function in that manner. Make sense?
Yes.
Simple, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else?
Not right now.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
You and then you. Number two, do you know who you are?
Yes.
All right, number one. Good day.
I think as we're like drops of water, it'd be too shocking for us to go right into the ocean, so we create these cycles of seven so that they can be like glasses of water and then a bucket of water and then
Yes.
so we can enjoy the ride home as opposed to just being shocked because it'd be too much.
Yes. Again, as we have from time to time discussed, the idea of your creation, of the experience of physiological reality, is for the appreciation of the mechanism of creation, so that it does not necessarily happen instantaneously, because within the creation there is much to appreciate. So yes, you create the timings and the processes so that you can see creation, the instantaneous allness in action. Yes.
It's like the brakes. So you wouldn't want to go through Disneyland at 80 miles an hour. You want to be able to hit the brakes when it's all out. You slow the process down.
All right, we understand the analogy, yes. Thank you. Anything else?
Me?
You.
Oh no, I mean not unless you know something I don't, but you probably do.
Not necessarily. Thank you. Number two. Good day.
Good day. The excavation site in Egypt between the Sphinx and the main pyramid, they did a scientific remote viewing of that, and I was told they found some sort of monolith type thing that's been revolving, creating energy, and has been ever since the Egyptian Empire. Is that
It is
true?
not literally there. It is an understanding of what might be considered to be the perpetual energy that supports the area. On an etheric level, it is a translation on an etheric level of that energy. because anything that is given energy or thought or concept will create a form, and that is the form of the energy, but it isn't physiological.
What are they going to find there when they finish the excavation?
In some of the chambers, there is the opportunity to find records of more details of your true history of planet Earth, including such things as records of Atlantis and what you would call early extraterrestrial interactions, and also, in some senses, the idea of information that can allow you to create many such devices as can tap into etheric and electromagnetic energy, and so on and so forth. And what is being remote viewed is some of that information as well, the recognition that devices are described that can be constructed that would allow you to tap into energy cleanly in that way. But the device in and of itself is not there physically.
I was told this would happen by this spring, is that correct?
One moment. There is about an 80% likelihood that this is possible, but it is not yet definite. There are still certain, what you on your planet would call political and sociological factors in play that can still divert this or change this. But as it stands right now, there is an 80% probability that this might be allowed to happen if more energy becomes aligned and cohesive with this intention in mind and allows or grants permission for the revelation of this information to be all right for your society to absorb.
Are you familiar with the Illuminati?
We understand the concept, although in many ways it doesn't necessarily exist in degrees as many individuals think it might.
Could you give me the extent of it today?
In general, you will find it is a concept that exists, an archetypal concept to which, from time to time, many individuals have aligned themselves and thus could be representative of being a part of what you call the Illuminati. But it is an archetypal strata in the collective consciousness to which, from time to time, some individuals have aligned themselves and function from within that level. Sometimes it involves the concepts of control and domination, and sometimes it involves the concepts of revelation of secret doctrine.
Are they in control today to a degree that we need to be concerned about?
No. Because today, as you say, is composed of many different belief systems and ideas, and there is more and more capability today, as you say, for understanding that your vibration creates your reality, and thus those that do not vibrate in accord to the idea of the concepts of domination and control cannot in any way, shape, or form be dominated and controlled by anyone aligning themselves with the domination energy of that concept. You follow?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. The Martian civilization on Santa Fe Baldy, what are they like, and do they speak English? And
some of them have telepathically learned some of the rudiments of some of your languages. Not all of them. Most of them are still functioning either within their own paradigmical language or simply in their own telepathic emotional understanding of communication. They have also, again, been genetically altered from the ancient form of the race to a great degree, and so in that sense do function a little bit more along the human line than the humanoid line they used to function along.
Are they fragile in human terms?
Not especially, not beyond the range of your typical human structure in that sense, no. Okay. In some ways, they are actually stronger in endurance.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily in physiological strength directly, but in endurance. They are to some degree more hardy. There is a fragility about them, but it isn't necessarily translatable in every case, nor in every individual, as actual physical fragility.
What kind is it?
Just in the sense that you might consider them to be somewhat, shall we say, delicate in appearance, shall we say aesthetically, fragile in energy, in that they are sensitive, but not necessarily more fragile than some individuals on your planet might be physically.
Okay. The drug LSD.
Yes.
What would be the best way to take that for enlightenment purposes?
With conscious intention, under the idea of absolute respect, in many cases with proper guidance.
What kind of proper guidance?
Perhaps with the assistance of what you may call a teacher, that you believe is on a certain level of understanding and capability of helping guide you through the experience. The idea is that that particular substance has the ability to literally unlock you from any particular reality. But when you, as you say in your language, come down, you understand? You will lock into, you will crystallize with what at that moment your strongest idea of the possibility of reality is. That will lock in. So, to be guided through the experience by a knowledgeable, clearly intentional, beneficial individual in terms of how to allow yourself to create in the unlocking the reality, vibration, belief, definition system you prefer so that you can relock that in a clear, intentional manner, beneficially, is of great importance in utilizing that substance. However, understand this. It is, in a sense, an artificially created substance, so to speak. Thus, it will contain, in and of itself, in general, in most cases, the attributes of artificiality. Meaning it will exemplify many of the belief systems of the society that has created it, and will not necessarily always, for any individual or every individual, be capable of being experienced in what you may call the purest way such a transition could possibly be experienced, not necessarily in every case as pure as utilizing for the same purpose the substances that naturally grow upon your planet for that purpose. You understand?
So are you saying something like peyote would be better for those purposes?
In a sense, not so much better, but more representative of the natural experience, rather than the artificial experience that is created through the artificial chemical. You understand?
Yes.
It is not that it does not necessarily have the ability to be utilized in a positive way, but it does automatically, by definition, bring with it some of the artificial definitions that went into creating it. So the idea is that, in general, the collective consciousness in its more pure form is expressed through the things that naturally grow upon the planet for that purpose. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. What is the world and America like in your time?
Your planet?
Yes.
In our contemporary time zone.
Yes.
The idea is that there isn't so much the concept specifically of what you call America.
Oh.
It is recognized as a region, and in many cases is still referred to as a region, but it doesn't really exist politically.
Are there politics at that time?
Not in the sense you have it now, no. Your planet, in my contemporary time frame, is a member of what you call the Association of Worlds, and functions as a single planetary system, even though it is allowed, through the recognition of the balance of diversity, it is allowed, in that sense, it has allowed its own cultures to remain defined for the richness of the diversity that different cultures produce, but it is not politically segregated in that sense.
I see.
Do you understand?
Yes. Is there a book or exercise you could recommend for me specifically for enlightenment purposes?
One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. There are several such ideas in your reality that might serve you in that way. Is there any particular direction at this particular moment that seems to be more exciting than any other with regard to the idea of your own expansion and spiritual growth?
Well, the idea of aliens and the whole spirituality and just there being more out there than we know about, that sort of direction, metaphysics, I guess you could say, that sort of direction.
You understand, of course, that the idea of exploring the outer is more paramountly the idea of exploring the inner more deeply. You understand that?
I do now.
Then at this time we find it will not necessarily serve you to make a specific recommendation. Allow yourself to be attracted to what you are attracted to, with the understanding that what may serve you best in general is what will allow you to get in touch more deeply with the inner recognition of self and all of the, shall we say, alien concepts that may exist within any particular individual. That will give you more insight into understanding any outer aliens you may ultimately encounter. Does that make sense to you?
So look inside for what I want to see outside?
Yes.
Yes.
Because we are only capable of interacting with your species when you have integrated yourself more fully and come into, shall we say, harmony and understanding with all of the ideas and definitions within yourself that you have, in the past, alienated yourself from. As you integrate in that way, it is more possible for you to experience other beings who also express and reflect the concept of more integration. Does that make some sense to you?
Yes, it does.
So the spiritual journey inward is what will allow that to be reflected outwardly. Make sense?
Totally.
All right. Trust your own synchronicity and your own intuition and your guides in terms of what it is you need to be guided to. This is the most serviceable thing we can say to you at this time, rather than a specific recommendation per se.
Okay. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bashar.
You and then you, number two. Do you know who you are? All right. Number one, good day.
Good day. In working with my beliefs,
Yes.
that the changes, well, I'm getting change, but the results are minimal. And
How do you define minimal? Does that mean you have some kind of a yardstick against which you are measuring the changes, and they are not, as you say, coming up to par?
Well, my beliefs, the beliefs, let's say, that I've been working with, were holding that.
Yes.
How do I say it?
All right. Well, while you are thinking about how to say it, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you remember the concept that we discussed from time to time with many individuals about how there are two ways to look at change? You can look at any change as minimal, or you can understand that any change is a total change.
Yeah, see, this is the next part of my question.
Yes.
That I was wondering if it was because I was not allowing the background to fully change, or if it was because I still had unconscious beliefs that were countering it.
It may still be simply the product of how you are defining the concept of change. In other words, if you are expecting to see the concept of change outside first before you are willing to believe that a change has been made, you will never see a change.
I think it was in the assessment of how I really felt when I was working with that belief.
But this is the criteria. In other words, if you know you have changed, then you will respond differently to something that even appears to be the same as it was a moment ago.
Okay.
That's how you know you have changed. You are the only thing that can change. You are the only thing that is available for change. Nothing outside you can be changed. You are the only thing that is available for change. Then the outer world can reflect the change. But if you are looking to the outer world for change, it means you have not changed, and thus you will see no change. You understand this concept?
Yeah, I understand it.
Well, you have to incorporate it in your behavior.
And I did, there is a few of the ones that I'm talking about, I actually really knew it.
Well,
Okay.
then in what circumstances do you find it is not to your best interest to continue to know that? Why do you
No, I
choose?
guess I was just really because I felt, I was really expecting more change.
Well, you see, but this is what I am saying. Expecting it in what context? Externally?
Well, you know how sometimes you actually feel the movement?
Yes.
When you actually change the belief, you feel.
So now you are
feel
saying
the
that
movement in
if
your
you do not have
environment.
that same feeling, nothing has changed. Is that what you're saying?
No.
What are you saying?
I felt movement.
Yes. In what sense? In what context are you defining movement?
Okay, I felt movement in the energy around me.
Yes, and so?
Where I actually, and I just thought on a few particular things.
Yes.
What I felt.
Yes. Was what?
Was greater than what the reflection back was.
But that is what I am telling you. You are making a comparison between what you feel and what you think the reflection is supposed to be. Stop making that comparison.
Okay.
Do you understand this?
Yeah.
You make the changes you make because that's the change you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of what you think the reflection is, it will get you.
I think I got confused in the feeling.
In what way confused in the feeling?
Well, the feeling You know, sometimes you can actually feel things and you see them then manifest.
Yes, sometimes there will be what you typically call an apparent one-to-one correspondence. But that is only because it just so happens that your definition in that circumstance happens to match the way the reflection can most easily play out along the path of least resistance. But that's not always the case, and never a criteria for judging whether or not the change has been profound or not.
Okay.
Because that is a criteria based on external reflection and not on internal knowledge.
I got it.
In other words, you have to know you have changed no matter what's going on out there.
Got it.
Make sense?
Yeah, got it. I was just getting confused in that feeling.
Yes.
Once you said that,
Yes.
because it started to go, I did think my feeling was off, so that's why I was asking, like,
That is why you are
background
confused.
thing? Yeah.
Because you are making a comparison to the background, and you have no business doing that.
Okay. Well,
Make sense?
you know, I'm just trying to work the stuff you can teach me.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. Can you just say it again so I could write it? The feeling, you said that the feeling, I shouldn't compare the feeling with...
Do not place any expectation on how the outer reality is supposed to reflect the magnitude of the change you know you have made. That is what will confuse you if you do that.
Yeah, the feeling is confusing.
No. The feeling definition of making that comparison. If you just stick with the feeling, you will know that a great change has occurred because the feeling is the only thing you can go off of because you are all there is. There's nothing out there.
And so in this reality, sometimes
Yeah.
when it appears that the feeling was grander than what the reflection at that moment was because of the path of resistance?
Is because simply of a definition that for some reason has been embedded within you that says it's supposed to match in a one-to-one correspondence, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes that will occur, and that may confuse you even further because sometimes it does occur that way, but it isn't supposed to, in a sense. It's not always supposed to. Sometimes you just have to know that the change has been complete and total, whether or not you get the expected reflection externally. Because that isn't always the case. It isn't always necessary. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Oh, I
just
can
got
thank you.
confused on this because I have so many times gotten the equal
Yes.
reflection on
Yes.
my feelings.
Yes.
So it's just,
Well, does this help you understand how to allow yourself to continue to choose to feel that the equal feeling is there, even though you don't necessarily have anything to compare it to physically?
yeah, and one of my other, maybe this is why I get confused, is because sometimes, like I have experiences myself at other levels,
Yes.
in other places,
Yes.
and where in those places it does work out that way.
Yes. But again, you see, what are you doing? Making a comparison.
Right, and I guess what I'm asking is, how can we here not get confused by the other levels?
You don't get confused when you stop making the comparison. When you stay where you are. When you validate where you are as where you're supposed to be and trust that the way it's happening where you are is the way it's supposed to happen instead of assuming that it's supposed to happen the way it happens somewhere else. Yes, total trust of the way it's happening where you are as that being the way it's supposed to happen where you are. Then you will not be confused because you will no longer be making a comparison to the way it might be somewhere else, but that may not have anything at all to do with the way it needs to happen where you are. Does that help? Thank you. Number 2. And to you, good day.
Recently, I've been having, my dreams have been way more intense.
Intense.
But I'm kind of getting confused.
More confusion. All right. Before you go on, please remember, all of you, this confusion is the natural result for a while of the co-fusion of the difference between two different definitions. For a moment it feels co-fusing, because that's what you're doing, is attempting to integrate from an old definition to a new definition, and so in that moment of transition there can be confusion, co-fusion. But that's all it is a transitional state. So, what is your experience of co-fusion?
I feel like I'm dreaming,
Yes.
but I'm not sure if I'm awake
Yes.
or if I'm sleeping. I'm losing the time.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
This is one of the symptoms of transition into fourth density reality, is you begin to be aware, of the fact that you're dreaming right now, and that's what reality is.
It's become very hazy.
At first this will be so, as you break down those barriers, until you understand that you are the dream. And then, suddenly, it will become crystal clear that reality is you. Not that you are in it. The confusion here is the old belief that reality is something you live in. And thus, when you have this sense that reality is becoming dreamlike, or that dreams are becoming more real, you are confused because you have, for a long time, imposed barriers and frameworks within the idea of yourself that has defined things in a certain way that are now dissolving. It becomes crystal clear again when you understand that at any given moment, reality is you, is what you dream it to be, and that the dream is real, that you are dreaming yourself into existence, in a sense. Does this make any sense to you? It will become clearer as you understand that you are the reality you're experiencing, instead of continuing to assume that you live in the reality in which an experience takes place.
Am I sleeping at all?
Yes, you are.
Because I'm finding myself almost...
In the way that your body needs to, you are. But you see, sleeping and dreaming are the functions of connecting to more of yourself. That's what they're for. Because as you have created the idea of physical reality being segregated from the concept of more of yourself, you needed to create a space in which you made a reconnection. And that's what sleeping and dreaming are all about. But as you allow the connection to become more of your daily existence, you will need, in a sense, to sleep and dream less in the way you classically have done. Because you will always be making that connection, always be being in the dream, and recognize that you're always awake and always dreaming simultaneously.
I'm definitely doing that.
This is a natural transition.
Sleeping less, dreaming everything.
Yes.
Also,
I am dreaming this interaction right now. Yes. This is a dream. I think so.
I had a strange experience. It's still kind of on my mind.
Oh, all right. Strange is relative, but go ahead.
I was sitting at a light.
A light. What kind of a light?
A traffic light.
Understood.
In my car.
Yes.
And I felt myself, in a sense, I felt my eyes kind of go behind my head, and I felt my body drop, and I didn't know if it was lack of sleep, or did I almost felt like I died for a second.
Yes.
And then I popped up, very scared.
Oh, all right.
But
alive.
But alive and survived well. That was
Brought yourself fully back into the moment.
Completely. But I felt almost, in a sense, like when I had myself passed out before. It felt like forever.
Yes, it is.
But I know it was...
Every moment is forever.
But I know it was enough time for the light to turn green.
Yes. But you experienced eternity and infinity in a single moment.
Yes.
You made a transition within yourself. You allowed a complete and abrupt transition to be felt as a complete and abrupt transition. That is the experience of the instantaneous shift that you can allow any shift to be. Does that make sense to you? You totally redefined the concept of who and what you are, and thus literally created a new universe around you, so to speak.
Right there on TCH?
Right there.
I'm just concerned.
Concerned?
No, I'm
about what?
I had to change the alphabetical letters. I'm off the C's. I'm wondering, this is down to W.
Yeah.
Why right front and why?
Why not?
Time for the shift.
Well, do you believe that things can happen outside of their appropriate timing?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Did you understand the question?
I believe so.
You believe that things can happen when it is an inappropriate time?
Yeah.
All right. Give us an example of something happening when it is not appropriate.
Everyday life, things will just a great meal, plate drops.
Yes, so why is that inappropriate?
It breaks.
So, why is that inappropriate?
I guess I'm thinking of it as more disturbing.
Well, that doesn't mean it's inappropriate.
Okay.
You understand the difference?
Yes.
So, nothing in and of itself, just because it happens, is inappropriate. How you relate to it can either be appropriate or inappropriate. You understand?
Yes.
The idea is to trust that everything does occur in its own perfect timing and for a reason. It is up to you at that moment to decide how to translate that relationship into what you believe is appropriately aligned with your intentions and your preferences, or unaligned inappropriately. But not that it happened in and of itself. Is it inappropriate?
Yes. So it's
Yes.
more aligned.
All right. But why then? Again, I ask you, why not then? Obviously, it was representative of a place and a timing wherein you would allow the change to occur and there would be no resistance to it. In a sense, it is appropriate that you utilize the symbol of the traffic light. For does that not tell you when to stop, when to go?
Mm-hmm.
Well then, what stronger symbol could you use for the idea of being within appropriate timing? Stop, then go. Stop, make a change, then go. Very simply symbolic of the idea of reassessing what you're doing, where you're going, where you're headed, and then, when it is, as you say, green, going in a new direction. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Sure.
You! Good day.
Good day to you. Thank you for giving your civilization constant radiance to our dimension.
And yours to ours as well.
Thank you. Can you comment on the Council of Nine relationship to the Galactic Federation?
No, not at this time.
Can you comment on any of the members of what we consider the Galactic Federation in relation to our planet?
When we are, as you say, conducting our next transmission, the guest that we mention will be connected, in a sense, to an aspect of what you call the Federation. And at that time, it will be more appropriate for that to be discussed.
Do the beings that we've called the Ascended Masters,
Yes.
are they, in a sense, graduated into that Federation, if they choose to?
On one level, they are, yes. Just as your own ascension into higher selves, in some ways, allows you access into what you call the Federation from that level.
And how many beings?
And this, to some degree, will give you, now, more appropriately, a little bit better understanding of the relationship of the Council of Nine to the Federation.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Thank you.
How many beings originally worked on our genetic changes of the Anunnaki? Was there a
Do you mean how many members specifically of the Anunnaki, or how many different races?
how many members of that faction of the Anunnaki worked on the genetic changes?
The first wave of what you have termed the Anunnaki, those ancient Lyrans, was in the neighborhood, roughly, of about 300,000 beings.
And of those beings, how many devolved into the grave?
Of those beings, none.
None?
Not the original wave to your world in that sense, no. This is the product of an offshoot that went into the ancient Orion systems. A very different lineage.
The grave, you mean? The ones that devolved into the grave?
Yes.
And
It is another lineage, another offshoot, at another time. The ones that were more originally directly connected to the original genetic transformations, with a few exceptions, were not part of that particular wave that went into the Orion system and eventually, as you say, devolved into the Grey civilization.
And those beings now who are the grave,
Yes.
where do they spend most of their time? Are they aboard
Here and
ship?
there.
Aboard ship?
Yes. Sometimes there will be reasons to be on their ancient home world and other worlds, but for the most part they spend most of their time aboard ships, yes.
And is there any, the fact that the graves take the humans, and the humans have forgotten their agreement, and it creates this state of terror and resistance,
Yes.
how does that affect the...
Remember that you are also talking about the idea of multiple levels and multiple factions of what you are collectively referring to as the graves. There are different relationships with different factions, and not necessarily do all levels of the agreements you have made with one faction necessarily represent themselves in your relationship or interaction with another faction. You follow?
Right.
Although everything is the product on some level of overall agreement, it doesn't necessarily mean that those agreements are representative of some of the specific ways that they play out with regard to your relationship to certain aspects of some of the factions of the grave. Does that make sense to you?
Right. Seems to be very multi-dimensional.
Yeah, it is.
Is there any repercussions in the grave civilization for the negative side effects that the humans experience?
Yes, many.
What are some of those?
Some of the repercussions are, in some senses, reinforcing the original experience that devolved them into the grave. So it is like a cyclic loop. Do you understand it?
Yeah. And how do they process that? Does it come out?
Some of them don't. The ones that do finally emerge into the understanding that they are creating the cyclic loop and allow themselves to re-perspectivize their relationship to the overall agenda and agreement so that they can come from another level, approach it from another perspective. That would be more beneficial in both directions, to their civilization and to yours.
And the beings that don't, do they have some kind of aberrant behavior they display?
Yes.
And is there like a confinement or a jail type situation that they run into?
No, because in that sense, they are cut off from the collective. And in that sense, if you wish to call that confinement, it would be experienced by them as such, because the perpetuation of that level of the energy will cut them off from the collective in such a way as to make them feel completely isolated, which to them feels like death.
So they basically get the... I understand.
Thank you.
Does slave labor in China, a lot of our products, we've been told that are produced in China is being manufactured by what we would consider slave labor type conditions?
In some senses, yes. This occurs at several places around your planet to some degree, to varying degrees of what you would consider to be beneath the equitable dignity of individuality, yes.
Now, from your perspective, does purchasing those products actually perpetuate the enslavement, or does it...
In many cases it does. In other cases it doesn't necessarily. You have to take it on an individual basis in your particular relationship to this idea. Obviously, in general, the idea of supporting certain systems will, of course, allow such systems to be perpetuated.
But from your perspective, is that situation a better situation for the individual than not having any work at all?
Not necessarily. Because if the individual would understand that they do not necessarily have to subject themselves to the limitations they have been taught to believe are their only options, then they would, by divesting themselves of that opportunity, open up new worlds and new options for themselves that they simply do not understand would exist. So in that sense, by actually refusing to participate in what they may believe on one level to be the only chance they have, would actually, paradoxically, open up other chances to them. As we have said many times, when you reach the concept of the so-called bottom of the barrel, then as you yourselves have recognized, the only direction that exists for you is up. And therefore, it opens up new paths and new ways of seeing and new opportunities that then will synchronistically occur to the individual that will show them that there are other ways that they can experience more equitability.
And a couple last things. When we went from analog to more of a digital component in music and sound, does that process take away our ability to respond emotively?
No.
Does it?
No. You can approach the idea of digitalization from an emotional perspective, if you wish. Again, it involves inclusion instead of exclusion. There are certain aspects of the concept of digitalization that certainly can be defined as excluding, but it doesn't have to be looked at that way. You can understand it from a higher perspective as simply a different way to organize information, but still express it within an emotional context, if you wish.
So the ability to respond from the actual sound emanating from the speakers is not changed to the extent...
It is changed, but not to the extent that it would erase your capability to respond emotively.
And the last thing, when things are imploded, if a chamber was built that would be like a furnace, but it imploded things, where do those things go? Do they just...
It will depend upon the degree of implosion. If it is beyond a certain threshold, things or aspects of things will implode into other dimensions.
And can that be, let us say, polluting the dimension?
It depends.
It was one of the questions that was posed. If that substance moves into another space...
It depends upon the dimension. Some dimensions, it will be seen as pollution. Other dimensions will have the framework and the matrix to transform these ideas that enter their dimensionality into things that are useful in that dimension, and as such it will not be seen as a pollutant, but simply raw material to work with. It depends upon the transformational capability of the dimension into which such a thing might have imploded. You understand?
Thank you very much.
Bashar?
Yes, good day.
Hi. I have a question about dreams. You're just saying that...
Yes.
That...
There are many, 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 many reasons for why you may experience what you call a dream. But go ahead.
Right, and that actually you create your own reality.
Yes.
And your own dreams.
Yes.
One and the same.
Yes.
Okay, so if I consciously want to change my reality, and I want to have a positive change in my reality, but my dreams are very anxiety-ridden, how do you change your dreams?
Again, it depends on how you define a thing. You can always use any experience in a positive way. For example, and this is just an example to give you a head start in learning how to approach these things in the way that you can. If you understand that you are experiencing in what you typically call your dream life circumstances that you would typically refer to as negative, you follow? Mm-hmm. Then why not look at it this way? Better that I experience those situations in my dreams than in physical reality. Better that I get it all out of my system in an etheric realm where it will not impact my physiological body than experience it in my physical world. Is that not a positive way to look at the idea?
Yeah, but...
But what?
But...
Would you rather experience it in your physical reality?
No.
Then why do you not understand that this is a positive thing, that it plays itself out in the dream realm instead? I am not necessarily saying that sometimes that cannot be representative of things that you do need to work through in your physical world, emotionally, and so on and so forth, and I am not saying that they cannot be representative of anxieties that you actually have in your physical life. Nevertheless, the idea that they play out in your dream reality can be seen, if you wish, as a positive thing, as opposed to having to experience them in your physiological world, can it not?
Yes.
Then what is the but for you?
Okay, the but is...
Yes.
Would it be more beneficial for me to be able to wake up in those dreams and turn around for myself rather than...
It depends, again, upon the reason for why you are creating the experience to be what it is and experience it in that dream format. Yes, it can, but it will depend upon why you have created that experience, what it is doing for you. So, again, it's up to you in terms of how you wish to approach this. If you understand that the dreams are playing out the way they are because there may be some aspect of yourself you are out of touch with in physical waking states that you may be denying and need to get in touch with, then the idea of wanting to transform that in your dreams could also be seen as a denial of something that you need to look at. However, the idea of getting in touch with what it is that may be causing the thing to play out the way it is playing out could give you the power to understand you have the power to not only transform it in the dream, but in your physiological reality as well. So again, there are different ways to look at this, but it all has to be based on your initial understanding of exactly why it is that this is playing out the way it is playing out, and the way to approach this is to simply approach it from a positive point of view. So that if there is the benefit of transforming it, or if there is the benefit in it revealing itself to you as information you need for your day-to-day reality, you will then, by treating it positively no matter what it is, by treating it positively, you will be open to the idea of receiving the information and dealing with it in whatever way, shape, or form will truly be representative of the path of least resistance and the most beneficial thing for your spiritual growth. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yes.
Then pleasant dreams.
Bashar.
You. 1, 2, do you know who you are? 3, do you know who you are? 3, do you know who you are? Number 1, good day.
Hi. I just want to make sure that I understand you correctly about the cycles of the chakras.
Yes.
I'm going to be 29 on the 29th of this month.
Oh, all right.
So, and I'm excited.
And so you are in that sense in the 4th cycle of 7.
Right. So am I moving into the 5th then on the 29th? Into the 5th cycle? The 5th chakra?
Go by the idea of 7s.
Right.
You are between the idea of your 3rd cycle of 7 and your 4th cycle of 7. Yes? In that sense, or are you approaching your 5th in that way? We see in your counting.
Yeah.
You are yes, in the 5th cycle, yes.
I'll be moving into the 5th when I turn 29, right? That was my...
You are in it now, yes. You are in it now.
Oh, so I started when I was 28.
Yes, because that is the end, so to speak. You understand? When you are 28, you have lived 28 years.
Exactly.
And are going into the 29th, yes.
Okay.
We understand your counting now. Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to get that straight.
Yes, so you are in now the 1st year, the 1st chakra. You understand?
Yes.
And when you are 29, you will have completed the 1st chakra of your 5th cycle, in that sense. Does that make sense to you?
Right.
Yes?
Wait, no.
Yeah, you start at 0. You don't start at 1.
Right, because the first year is 1, and then, right.
But at 1, it already is 1.
Okay, no, wait. Could you say that one more time?
When you are, in your terms, 29,
Right.
you will have completed the 1st year
Oh, the first year, right.
of the cycle
Okay,
of
yes.
7 that you are in now.
Yes.
And you are in the idea of the cycle of 7 of the 5th chakra.
Right.
Having completed the root chakra of the 5th chakra cycle.
Right.
So you are making fundamental connections, which is the root chakra, right?
Right.
Fundamental, grounding, foundational connections in your 1st year of the 5th cycle, which represents what?
Expression, self-expression.
And communication.
Right, which makes
Which
so
is
much
why
sense.
you are growing in the form of channeling.
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense to you then?
Yes.
All right.
And I've been really excited about this birthday just because it's the 29. I'll
Yes.
be 29 on the 29th, so.
Oh, all right.
That's why I was
Then
thinking
there
I
is
was going to be
synchronicity
moving
for you
into
there
the,
as well.
Yeah.
And a reinforcement vibration that it can be utilized as an amplification step up for you.
Right. So, and then one more question
Yeah.
is the sensation in my side that I've talked to you about, which...
About the kidney function. Yes.
Right. Well, the last time I talked to you, it was about the kidney function.
Yes.
I don't think it's about that anymore, but it's still in the area of my spleen is where I'm still having this sensation.
All right.
And I'm just wondering if there's anything...
Investigate concept homeopathically as to what the spleen represents in terms of energy balance.
It has to do with expression, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, I knew that about this from the very beginning, that it had to do with expression.
And now you give yourself a reinforcement for understanding the patterns that come about when you investigate the idea of the chakra correlation.
Right.
So,
Well,
vent your spleen. Which is another form of saying, express yourself, isn't it,
Right.
in your language?
Right.
Vent your spleen. So open up the energy centers in that area more.
Okay, so I'm just really the only time that I feel it is when I'm meditating, and
But that's because you are getting in touch with your inner life,
Mhm.
and you're getting in touch with the issues at hand that need the strongest transformation. So, by giving voice to it, by giving expression to it, you will let the energy flow, you will channel the energy, it will not in that sense build up.
Mhm.
But, as you now move into the 2nd year, what will you be dealing with? Remember, you are within the overall now 5th chakra of expression and communication, but you're going into the 2nd year of that cycle of 7, which deals with
Emotion.
Thank you. To have some wild times coming up. A lot of feelings to deal with.
That this year has been incredibly emotional already.
Yes.
So.
But it's going to be even more so.
I didn't know that was, well, okay.
You weren't necessarily supposed to know.
Yeah, right.
Surprise, surprise.
Uh-huh.
Happy birthday. Number 2.
Hi. I have another question about the Merlin.
Yes.
energy.
Yes.
Am I starting to get on the track? Am I getting warm to what we've been talking about the last 2 weeks?
Well, let's say you are tepid.
Why is it so hard?
Good question. In what you call tomorrow's transition and our discussion of the magic tool of 13, more of this will be discussed. And there will be some specific applicational tools that you can take advantage of with regard to your connection to the Merlin energy, all right? Number 3.
There's something that I'm confused about.
More confusion! Oh, what? 3 times 3, yes.
It's like my reality. I'll be living a certain reality, experiencing, feeling really great. Everything seems to be going my way. And then all of a sudden my reality changes and it's like nothing is going that way. And I almost feel like...
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Once again, definition. Why should you assume just because it isn't what you expect it to look like that it's not going your way?
Well, the thing about it is, it's
Yes.
almost as if my entire life is suddenly going to fragment and fall apart. And
So why is that not going your way?
Well, and it's just switching back and forth, like
Yes.
feeling integrated,
Yes.
feeling like everything's connected
Yes.
and working, and then all of a sudden it's all gone.
Yes. So why is that not going your way?
Well, and
Why are you defining that experience, that sensation, as having to do with not going your way?
because the fear I experienced during that experience, even though I
Yes.
frame it,
Yes. And so if you have fear, what does that tell you?
that I believe that could happen.
That you have a definition that says that this is somehow not a part of your process of growth and joy, that it is somehow an interruption in it instead of being a part of it.
Yeah, because
Well,
when I'm there,
Well.
I think.
what do you want to do about this?
I don't know.
Yes, you
Well, yes,
do.
of course I know what I want.
You want to define that sensation as a part of. Then you begin to behave as if it is so. Of course, you don't have to, but you can.
That sneaky little voice will come up and say, "Oh, you just think it's part of your process."
Then let that voice be a part of the overall process too. Don't deny any aspect of yourself. Don't try to shut it out. Remember, it's the product of absorption and inclusion that expands you, not isolation. So if that voice comes up, say, "Hello, voice. I now ordain you as part of the process. Thank you for showing up on time exactly when you needed to be here. You are now part of my expansive process. What can I learn from you? You're not an interruption in it. You're part of it. Thanks for joining the party."
So even if my reality suddenly becomes terrifying,
Then you know you're on the right track because you're dealing with something that is a core issue. And that should be cause for joy and celebration. And turn your terror into a party. You do it every Halloween, why not do it any other day? You understand? You have herein these ideas. The opportunity to scare yourself sacred. Scared, sacred. A slight rearrangement of letters.
it's like crystalline.
Scared, sacred. A slight rearrangement of letters in your language. Is it not? Spell scared.
C-A-R-E-D.
Spell sacred.
S-A-C-R-E-D. The same word.
Scared, sacred.
So the terrorizing of or the terrifying feelings I experience.
Is to push yourself into the exploration of your true spirituality. If you use it that way, you can allow yourself to become scared sacred.
And that is like my own process.
Yes. You can go about it in your own particular methodology, yes. But that is the basic principle here.
Oh, is that true in general?
Yes. When you face that great terror in a positive way, with the appropriate behavioral attitude that it is there to serve you, you will allow it to do so.
Yeah, it's like when you're really in the terror, then it's not so easy.
That's a definition. But that comes with the territory of being terrified. But if you know that, then it's all right to explore unknown territory. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm getting it.
Yeah. So, terrified, then terraform yourself. Become scared sacred. Slight rearrangement is all it takes for a completely different outcome in the equation. At this timing, we extend once again to each and every one of you our heartfelt appreciation in being allowed to experience the dream of this interaction. We now awake into a world that is a world we have never experienced before. So we thank you for the co-creation of our new reality. We bid you all a fond and gracious good day. Until next transmission. How did it go?
Great.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Please have a good night.
Where are you going to be tomorrow?
Thousand Oaks, the Kashik bookstore.
What time? 7:30?